All right, point the camera at me. That'd be nice. Well, he's not here, so.
Wow. Okay. There we go.
Okay, we'll center the pray sign, and
No, you're good.
right, that's fine. Are we streaming? That's the question. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry we're running behind tonight, but it's a slight technical difficulty, and unfortunately Pastor Drake is on his way to Paris, France for a meeting of the Democratic Iran seminar. So as a result, he's entrusted us here at the sanctuary with his show materials, and we're running a little bit behind, but we're going to learn how to do it. One of the things we do not have on yet is the phone system so that you can call in. So we're going to have to get that set up temporarily. If you want to call and ask a question that can go on to the show, you can call me at 951-261-0799. And you call, I'll answer, and if it's for the show, then I'll put you on the speaker, and that way it'll go across over the mic, and we hopefully will survive that way. For those of you who do not remember, or this is your first time seeing this, my name is Dr. J. Stephen Davis. I am one of the Pastor Drake's assistants here at the sanctuary. I am the Director of Security, and I am the legal advisor for Pastor Drake. We have several different things that are happening, and so we want to talk about it. The main thing that is the huge issue right now is the FBI Director, Comey, trying to justify his recommendation that Hillary not be charged with a whole bunch of crimes. I find it interesting that Trey Gowdy and the other congressmen were able to get him to testify before them today, which Congress has the power to subpoena people and take their testimony. And he just pretty well laid everything out for him and said that everything she did was illegal, that she had lied four times to Congress.
99430. If this is correct, press 1.
And we're still loading up on the our phone here.
Participant in the conference.
Get it taken care of right now.
Cool.
712-432-1690.
Little more technical difficulty, people, and then we'll get right back onto the program here. We're just having way too much fun today. Again. Assuming that we're going to get the system going again, for those of you that may be new, as soon as we can get the music off, that is. Oh, I'm having too much fun today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to call into the show, then you call 1-712-432-1690. You'll get a recording that says enter your access code. Now, that access code only gets you into our system, but it absolutely, positively does not identify you. We are not going to know who you are merely because you put in that access code. That access code is 399430#. And then it'll ask you if that's the number you entered. You will say, hit 1 for yes, and then it will say you're on the system, announce yourself. That's up to you as to whether or not you wish to announce yourself. If you want to give us your name and where you're calling from, that's fine. If you do not want to give us your name and where you're calling from, that's fine also. Once you get into the system, if you wish to ask us a question, by all means, ask us a question. If you have a comment in regards to what we're covering on the show, by all means, make a comment and we'll address it. Back to the testimony of the FBI Director Comey before Congress today, in which he just flat gave up Hillary when you really get down to it. And what he did is he acknowledged that Hillary had lied to Congress 4 times during her testimony to Congress in regards to Benghazi and a couple of other interesting issues. So we now know that Hillary Clinton is a liar. We also know that lying to Congress is a crime. So we have a brand spanking new crime to deal with now. Comey admitted that she had multiple servers. He admitted that she transmitted and received confidential information. It turns out that some of her assistants who were handling the systems did not have clearances. So they were handling classified government materials, and they had no clearance to do that. Fortunately for me, I had to get a security clearance when I was in the military, and so I got a secret clearance, and also considered some other interesting things during that, but I am familiar with what it's like to get a confidential secret clearance from the government and what is the pressure that is put on you and the responsibility that is put on you if you get such a clearance. It is amazing that they literally are trying to use the ignorance defense in Hillary's case. And I am not the first who have said that this is going to become universally known as the Hillary defense, which is, I will try to say it as distinct as possible for what exactly this defense is. And what the defense is I'm too ignorant to be held criminally liable for anything I did. Boy, what a great defense that is. So as a result, you can now plead ignorance, and it's a real defense. It does kind of create an interesting issue, though. Here is a woman who says that we should elect her to be the President of the United States. And that means she's going to get the football. And we are supposed to trust her with the football. And she's too ignorant to know whether or not there's anything classified in the football, and if it is, what she can and cannot do with it. For those of you who have not read any of Tom Clancy's books or related materials, what the football is the briefcase that has the nuclear activation system in it. That is what decodes the system and allows the nuclear button to become activated. That is carried by a warrant officer. Used to be a warrant officer. I don't know who it is now. It's been a while since I was in the business. And wherever the president goes, that person goes with them. And that is referred to as carrying the football. And so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, there's somebody not too far from the president that carries the football. And there are some other safety issues, thank goodness, when it comes to punching the nuclear button. There is agreements that have to be done between other what's called key holders. Those are the ones that can actually activate the football. And it takes 2 keys to activate the football. So fortunately, Obama or Hillary can't do it by themselves. But I really would be a little doubtful if I would trust her with a football if she's too ignorant to know that secret means you can't put it out over the public server with no protection on the server. we have a pretty good idea now that our enemies have gotten everything that she put onto that server, including all this classified material. I find it interesting that the big argument has been who's got the most material. Is it Putin over in Russia through his hackers, or is it ISIS and the Muslim terrorists through their hackers? But let's talk about some interesting things that we can do with this issue. One of the things that has showed up on the Facebook pages is all of the other people who committed crimes similar to what Hillary committed or sort of related to it, and who all wound up with problems as a result of it. I happen to like the Martha Stewart issue, where what she was convicted of was lying to the government when they asked her about a tax deal that she tried to put together. And so the issue was not whether or not the tax shelter that she was trying to use was legal, it's did she lie to government agents about it. And as we know, she became a guest of the Federal Bureau of Prison because they determined that she lied about it. We know that General Petraeus, in getting his book written, gave his girlfriend/author access to some classified material, and they said, well, that was illegal. He got convicted. Now, it was a misdemeanor, so he got to keep his retirement, and he still didn't get discharged from the military, although he's obviously a forced retirement, but at least that wasn't too bad. The guy that I really like is Eric Snowden. Okay, here's a guy that's hiding out in Russia because he released all of the proof that the National Security Agency was illegally spying on us United States citizens. And so he pulled a spectacular whistleblower event when he released that material. And of course, they immediately issued a criminal complaint against him, and so he's now hiding out in Russia. But he did say, hey, if you'll let me tell the truth, I'll come back and you can try me, but I want to be able to tell the truth. I happen to think that's committing suicide, but that's my opinion, and so be it. The thing that really caught our attention on his Facebook page was the fact that they talked about Mr. Nakula. Mr. Nakula was the filmmaker that made the Innocence of Muslim video that showed up on YouTube that was then for a little while used as a justification by Obama and Hillary Clinton for Ambassador Stevens and the three other Americans in the United States, or from the United States, being killed in Benghazi when the riots happened. And of course they were saying, oh, it's because of this video that they were so upset, that's why they killed everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say something that I have never said before. And it will probably shock a few of you, so if you want me to give you a warning that you want to take the kids out and buy them an ice cream instead of listening to what I'm going to say so they aren't offended, so be it. But fortunately for me, Pastor Drake's not here, so he can't hit me as I get ready to say what I'm going to say. So here's what I'm going to say. I do not care if the movie that Mr. Nakula made showed Muhammad having carnal knowledge with a sow. I would not care. And it comes to whether or not that was justification for killing Americans. The answer is not no, but heck no. So if he had Porky in his bed with him getting it on, that was not grounds to kill 4 Americans, period. Now, we do know that because of this, Mr. Nakula has a fatwa, a death sentence, issued by an imam against him. We know that Pastor Drake, because Pastor Drake is protecting him, has a fatwa issued against him. One of my jobs is to catch bullets for Pastor Drake if necessary. I'm not exactly sure if I get a bonus if I catch one, but at least I know what my duty is in regards to that. Back to where you can bring the kids back into the room if you want to listen to the show now. So In terms of the Hillary defense, should Eric Snowden be able to come back because he had no intent to do anything criminal? He was serving as a whistleblower when we found out that the NSA was spying on us. Absolutely. He should be able to come back. Should Mr. Nakula's record be cleared because he wasn't trying to hurt anybody when he made the film? Absolutely, he should be cleared. Should Petraeus be cleared because the reason why he was giving the information to the author/girlfriend who was writing his biography was not criminal? Absolutely. All he was trying to do is show her what he had been doing so that it made his biography a little more interesting, but there certainly was no criminal intent. He wasn't trying to help the bad guys. He wasn't trying to give the nuclear launch codes to ISIS, but certainly he should have been able to be able now to say, hey, I had no criminal intent, so why did I get convicted? The thing that's really embarrassing for the FBI, and it amazes me how I don't know if the word is ignorant or if it is egotistical, but I find it interesting that Director Comey wasn't smart enough to figure out that as soon as he released, that Hillary had done nothing wrong, then a whole bunch of people were going to get on the internet and start running that issue. And what they would have found is the Navy contractor who was illegally keeping classified materials on his personal laptop computer so that he could do work on it when he wasn't at the facility. And that, of course, is illegal. Can't do it. He had no criminal intent. The entire offense was he had documents that were marked as secret that he kept on an unsecure server that he took with him. Not that he released it to anybody, not that he sold it to anybody, not that he tried to do anything that was not in the best interest of the United States. He merely was trying to figure out a way to do things faster and easier, and unfortunately the way he picked was illegal. So he wound up being convicted, paying a fine, and he's still under some injunctions of what he can and can't do when it comes to computers. What he did was not 1% as bad as what Hillary Clinton did. Not 1%. So if you have any doubt whatsoever as to whether or not Comey was misstating the facts, I'll be polite, I won't call him a liar, I will say he was merely misstating the facts, that the government had never prosecuted anybody for anything like this before, then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That was a misstatement of facts, and a director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations should know better. We know now that Trey Gowdy is pretty sure that he's got the goods on Hillary and Comey. We know that some other congressmen are coming online. And you may ask yourself, okay, under our system of government, what in the world could Congress do to solve this problem? Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's something that Congress should have done a long time ago when they were dealing with Obamacare. And hopefully they're going to get smart enough to be able to deal with the solution to the problem now. Here's what you do. Congress controls the purse strings. Congress is the one that controls the piggy bank and doles out the money to the federal agencies so that the federal agencies can operate. What say Congress goes to Loretta Lynch and to Director Comey and a guy by the name of Barry Shapiro that some people know as Hussein Obama, and says, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We are going to shut off your bank accounts. We are not going to pay wages. We are not going to pay for the lights. We're not going to pay for anything for the Department of Justice or the Federal Bureau of Investigations until Hillary is indicted. As a result, you can send all your people home, and they can sit there with no paychecks, waiting for somebody to make a decision, and that will just be the way it is. And so you literally will have, for the few months left of Obama's term, the Department of Justice and the FBI shut down because they're too obnoxious to not do what's right, which is indict Hillary. I am very glad to hear that somebody came up with the same solution I came up with, and I thought I was being a genius, and it turns out I'm not. I just saw something that was obvious and stated it, which is under our system of government, what is supposed to be done, and unfortunately hasn't been done, but what's supposed to be done is citizens are supposed to sit on a grand jury. And when they're on the grand jury, the government brings a case to them, puts the case on, and it is the grand jury citizens who decide whether or not to issue the indictment. And the indictment then goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office, AG's office, to get prosecuted, and that is the safeguard and the protection that we have from being falsely accused by the government. Well, unfortunately, the government doesn't like that, and so now you will see sometimes, a lot of times, people charged by what's known as a complaint as opposed to a grand jury indictment. I happen to think those complaints are illegal because they're unconstitutional, but that's for a different show. The advantage of Comey and Lynch taking this to the grand jury is that they would have a great excuse now for saying, hey, we didn't do it. It was the grand jury, a bunch of citizens in a little room that made the decision to indict her. So we're innocent of doing anything bad to Hillary. We didn't do it. The problem is it's just exactly the opposite of what they want to do. There is no doubt that both Lynch and Comey don't want Hillary indicted. Why? I don't know. I wish I could give you the motive of what's going on. Obviously, there's a bunch of things. Excuse me for a minute.
Well, I have a question.
Yes, dear. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
My question from the gallery over here.
Can I?
I've had a hard, crazy day. I don't want to be in
Water.
Could the American citizens bring some kind of class action lawsuit against Hillary or the FBI to the Supreme Court to say, I don't know what to say, but to bring her up on charges?
The answer is, yeah, there's a procedure, but it's going to be really interesting to see if it's done. Where the government has a duty and the government doesn't do it, then you can bring what's known as a writ of mandate. And what a writ of mandate is it's an old English common law term, but it's where you literally ask a judge to order the government to do their duty. It's called a writ of mandate. And so they will argue that the government has discretion as to whether or not they can bring a case for prosecution. In this situation, it is so outrageously wrong what they did. Could I, in good faith, bring a writ of mandate and ask a court to order that the case be put before a grand jury? Probably yes. Is it possible that Judicial Watch or one of the other groups will do that? By all means, it's possible that they would do that. And you're going to notice I'm going to sneak off the camera here for a second because I'm going to get me some water real quick. Made the mistake of sitting down without my bottle of water. It's all my fault. So back to a writ of mandate. The other thing that can happen, we talked about the fact that Congress could literally shut off the, could literally shut off the bank accounts for the Department of Justice and for the FBI and just say, hey, until you do what we want, you ain't got no money. Much like your kids, you ain't getting your allowance until you get the lawn mowed. It works on the kids, so you can go from there. But let me tell you what else you can do. Under the system of government that we have, there are certain offices that are so important that the president has to nominate the person for that office. Then the Senate has to agree to the nomination. And only after the Senate agrees to the nomination does that person take the office. Now we know in the case of Judge Bork, where he was put up to go on to the Supreme Court, but the Democrats didn't like him, he was not allowed to go on to the Supreme Court. The Senate, which was controlled by the Democrats at that time, refused to approve him. And that we now have a new legal term. Well, it's not a new legal term, it's a legal term that we didn't have before, and that's called being borked. So if you don't get approval when you're trying to do something, you have been borked. And so that's a interesting legal term. So back to what we're talking about. The Attorney General of the United States is the highest ranking law enforcement officer and the highest ranking attorney in the federal system. She had to have been nominated by a president, and she then had to have been approved by the Senate. Same thing with the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He had to have been nominated. He had to have been approved by the Senate. And the advantage of having to get congressional approval before you can take the position is the Congress has the power to impeach you. And impeach is a fancy word, but all it means is removed from office, but it's a two-step process. And this is why you can get a little bit confused, because people will say, well, wait a minute, Bill Clinton was impeached. Yeah, he was, but impeached merely means that charges were brought. He was not convicted for what he did. So yeah, they brought charges against him, and he was the first president to have been impeached, i.e. charged, in many, many years. I think the last president before him that did was Andrew Jackson, and that's going back into my memory. But obviously it was quite some time ago. So was Bill Clinton impeached? Yes. But was he then found guilty and removed from office? No. So back to Loretta Lynch and Director Comey. Can they be impeached by Congress? Yes. Can Obama stop that? Probably not. Probably not. And although the president has the power of pardon, P-A-R-D-O-N, and so he literally has the power to forgive anybody of a crime, I do not know of any situation in which a pardon has been used to stop an impeachment. Now you may think to yourself, okay, well, what about some guy by the name of Richard Nixon and the problem that went with him? Well, what you have to remember with Richard Nixon is, once again, what he did was 1/1000th of as bad as what Hillary Clinton did. What Richard Nixon did is, through some very bizarre mechanism, a tape was erased. And depending on who you want to talk to, the tape either had 30 seconds of really important stuff on it, or it had 18 and a half minutes of really important stuff on it. And of course, the mechanism of how that tape got erased was hilarious when it was all going down. But the bottom line is, because of the erasure of the Watergate tapes, and whether or not there was any evidence that Richard Nixon knew what was going on with Watergate before it went down, he was literally forced into a resignation. They said, well, we can impeach you if you want, but if you resign, we'll let you keep all your bennies. So by resigning as the president, he got to keep his retirement, he got to keep his Secret Service protection, he got all the other bennies that a sitting president gets. Unfortunately, we got stuck with Spiro Agnew, which is another issue, but at least he was able to do that. So no, Richard Nixon was not impeached, but they threatened him with impeachment to get him to resign. So could they do the same thing to Director Comey? Oh, absolutely. He is a sitting director for the FBI. Hillary's a little more of an interesting problem. She currently does not hold a position. So the Congress cannot impeach her at this time. But you want to throw out an interesting issue, and I don't know that anybody has seen this yet, and I'm certainly not the constitutional scholar good enough to be able to give an opinion on this, so I'll throw this out as a little bit of a challenge. What would happen if Hillary Clinton gets elected to the President of the United States, but the Congress, both the Senate and House of Representatives, are still Republicans? And what if they said, guess what? Based on the illegal things you did and the fact that you lied to us during the hearings, we're not going to recognize you as the President of the United States. As far as we're concerned, that office is still empty. We are not going to recognize you. Oh, would that be an interesting problem? Can they legally do it? I don't know. Don't know it's ever been done before, but certainly it'd be an interesting way to deal with the issue. Is this going to be a major issue when you finally get to the point that Trump and Hillary start doing their debates? And we know that within 30 days, both of them will have been through their conventions. They will have become the nominees, unless something bad happens to Trump, and that's another issue for another day. So they will be debating each other. One of the interesting things floating around Facebook, which I like a lot, is that Trump, because he has money and because he would probably kind of sort of do something like this, what if he brought the families of those that were killed in Benghazi, the wives, the children, the brothers and sisters, put them in the front row of that debate and started asking Hillary questions about Benghazi while she's looking into the eyes of the people that she lied to that were killed in Benghazi? Man, there's a wicked bit of strategy. And can I see Trump doing something like that? Sure. Can he literally force her into a Fifth Amendment issue while he's debating her? Probably yes, and man, would that be embarrassing. If he worded a question correctly that said, admit that you violated this section when you released or put this information on an uncontrolled private server, and I mean flat stated the elements of a crime, she now has a problem, because if she's on nationwide television and said, yeah, I admit I did that, well, she just copped to a crime and she gets prosecuted. If she says, well, I don't want to answer that question, I'm going to stand on my Fifth Amendment rights, oops, gee, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of sort of what criminals do, is stand on their Fifth Amendment rights. So it'd be funny to have a candidate that refuses to answer a debate question because of her Fifth Amendment rights. That would be a little difficult to explain. Do I see her having a huge problem with her candidacy? Absolutely. I have begun to see on social media that, to his credit, Bernie Sanders has said, this ain't right, this ain't good, I don't like this. Now, is he saying that because there's a possibility that the Democratic Party would not put her up given what has happened, and because he's the odd man out, he gets selected to run as the Democratic candidate? Yeah, possible. Do I think he's that selfish? I don't know. I don't know the man well enough to be able to say whether or not he would use her illegal acts to bolster his run for president. I do not know. But could I see that as being a way out? Yes. Do I think it would be fatal to the Democrats' hope to elect the president if Hillary continued to be the candidate? Probably yes. One of the other things that I think nobody's mentioned yet, but I see it happening, is you're hearing a lot about people saying that Hillary is going to pull voter fraud, and that a bunch of dead people are going to register to vote, and they're going to vote for her, and a bunch of computer glitches are going to happen to the voting machines, and so you vote Republican and it comes up Democrat, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And so there is a horrendous fear and discussion about voter fraud. Well, here's what I like about the fact that Trump is the person that is going to be running against her. He is a billionaire. He has the resources to investigate that and to bring it to the public and to litigate the issue if that happens. If you'll remember, this is not the first time that the results of a ballot box were litigated that resulted in a president of the United States being elected. If you will recall, we had that problem down in Florida, in which Al Gore was running against Bush, and there was a huge argument as to whether or not the ballot boxes in Florida had a problem with them, and ultimately it was that decision that made Bush the president. And it was an incredibly small number of votes that swung the election, but to this day the Democrats still whine about global warming Gore not becoming the president of the United States. So certainly there's a history of challenging those sort of elections. Not that I would in any way, shape, or form be so egotistical as to make a suggestion to Trump, but I would imagine that it wouldn't be too bad an idea for Trump to be having people placed at certain ballot points and to be tracking how those ballot points are being handled. And then after the election is over, look at the results from those particular ballot points, polls, and be able to say whether or not their observations followed what was going on with the polls. And if he put it in a couple of interesting places and he was able to show that what they saw and recorded on the polls on a particular day did not match what really happened, ooh, that would really be cool. I can see something even better. What if Trump was smart enough to go to various polling places and get 100 people who agreed to go into the poll and vote for him? And you have their name, you have their signature, you have the little magic number that they get, and so he puts in 100 or 500 or 1,000 people into that poll. And then when the election doesn't go good, he suddenly produces all of their names and all of their poll numbers and said, hi, I want to see how these people voted according to your records, because these people all agreed to vote for me before they pushed the button. And if I find out that 1,000 people that voted for me were shown by your magic box as voting for Hillary, I think we have a problem. So do I see Trump being able to do something like that? Absolutely. Do I think it's a good idea? Absolutely. And do I think that's what the Democrats are afraid of? Absolutely. So I'm going to leave it at that point now. I'm going to let you think about that for a bit. We will be back on tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we will also be back at 5 o'clock in the evening. Thank you for putting up with our minor technical difficulties tonight. Certainly if you got to us late or wondered what happened, I believe that this is going to go up to the archives so that you can watch it, and we look forward to any comments you may have either on Pastor Drake's Facebook page or my Facebook page, Stephen Davis. You can see me standing there in a fireman's uniform with my son. Click on that. That'll get you to my Facebook page. Certainly you can text me at 951-261-0799. Give me a first word like Hillary or something along that line so I know what your text is, and then I can look at it, and then I can get back at you. Thank you very much for watching the show. Have a good evening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.